Little boy came to say goodbye to his father. He notices something strange and stops the funeral. At the front of the grand church stood a little figure, dwarfed by the enormity of his surroundings and the weight of his grief. 10-year-old Jamal, a boy with skin kissed by the sun and eyes that reflected a wisdom beyond his years, was struggling to comprehend the surreal reality unfolding before him. His small, trembling hands clung to the wooden pew as he stared at the mahogany coffin housing his father's earthly remains. His father, a stalwart pillar in the community, and Jamal's very world, was no more. The man whose melodious voice filled the church every Sunday, who lovingly taught Jamal life's most profound lessons, now lay silent, leaving a void that echoed through the hallowed halls of the church and within the young boy's heart. Jamal's father had been more than just a parent. He was his hero, mentor, and the finest preacher their town had ever known. His words were magic, touching the souls of his congregation and bringing comfort and hope in their darkest times. His sermons were woven with wisdom and compassion, leaving a profound impact on everyone who heard them, especially young Jamal. He had taught Jamal the pillars of life, faith, family, and community. Through his work, he demonstrated how faith could be a beacon of hope in the stormiest of times, a comforter during pain, and a guide during confusion. He instilled in Jamal an understanding of family as the foundation of life, a haven of unconditional love and unwavering support. Through his selfless service to the community, he showed Jamal the joy of giving, the beauty of solidarity, and the strength in unity. But now, with his father's demise, the teachings that had once been his solace seemed hollow. The faith he'd held firm now wavered. His family felt incomplete, and the community seemed disjointed. His once vibrant world had dulled, and a chilling sense of loneliness seeped into his being. His father's absence was like a void, a gaping wound that seemed to grow with every passing second. Every corner of the church reminded Jamal of him, of his captivating smile, his warm embrace, and the sound of his laughter echoing against the high vaulted ceiling. As he stood there, a small boy grappling with an immense loss, the church, filled with congregants mourning the same loss, seemed eerily silent. Their shared grief hung heavy in the air, their tears a testament to the man who had touched their lives in his unique way. Jamal's journey into the world without his father had begun, a journey he neither chose nor wanted. His loss was immense, his sorrow deep, and his loneliness haunting. Yet amidst the ocean of grief, unbeknownst to Jamal, the seeds of his father's teaching were quietly taking root in his heart, ready to guide him through the difficult path that lay ahead. The young boy stood at the brink of a transformative journey, one where he would discover the depth of his strength, the resilience of his spirit, and the enduring wisdom of his father's teachings. The solemn drone of the funeral service echoed through the church, the words of the minister bouncing off the stone walls, attempting to fill the void left by Jamal's father. But as the minister continued to eulogize his father's life, Jamal felt a growing disquiet. The narrative that was being spun, the stories being told, they didn't sound quite right. They seemed to lack the color, the depth, the texture of his father's life as Jamal knew it. The words felt hollow, foreign, as if they were snatched from the mouth of a stranger and not the man who was supposed to know his father best. The minister's voice, typically rich and comforting, now sounded impersonal, his anecdotes lacking the intimacy of shared memories and experiences. Jamal listened, his confusion mounting with every syllable, the sermon sounding more and more like an echo of someone else's understanding of his father. Bewildered, Jamal turned around to glance at the sea of faces seated behind him. An unsettling sight met his eyes. The congregation, usually animated with emotions, were now a picture of uniformity. Their faces were blank, their expressions vacant, as though their thoughts had drifted far away from the reality unfolding before them. Their eyes bore a glazed look, their gaze affixed on the minister, unblinking and unseeing. The sight was eerie, almost otherworldly. The churchgoers who once hung onto his father's every word, their faces reflecting a spectrum of emotions, now seemed entranced, their connection to the present moment severed. It was as if a strange fog had descended upon the congregation, their minds ensnared in a trance that dulled their senses and numbed their feelings. In the vast church, amidst the grieving crowd, Jamal suddenly felt alone. An isolating realization gripped him. The people who should have been sharing his grief seemed unreachable, lost in an inexplicable haze. The tangible connection that should have existed through their mutual loss appeared to have evaporated, leaving Jamal in a chilling solitude. As the service progressed, the disconnection between the minister's words and the congregate's reaction deepened. Jamal looked around once again, the bewilderment in his heart reflected in his eyes. The congregation remained still, their faces blank, their eyes lifeless, their connection to the occasion seemingly severed. A sense of strangeness pervaded the scene, contrasting the vibrant community-focused church services his father used to lead. The disoriented 10-year-old boy found himself caught in an unexpected paradox, surrounded by a multitude, yet alone in his grief in a familiar place that suddenly felt strange at a celebration of a life that didn't seem to resonate with those who had known his father. The funeral service, a supposed tribute to his father's life, had taken a surreal turn, leaving Jamal adrift on a sea of confusion. He sat there, a little boy grappling with loss and strangeness, yearning for understanding amidst the incomprehensible spectacle unfolding around him. A shiver of fear skittered down Jamal's spine as the uncanny scene before him refused to abate. The inexplicable disconnection between the minister's eulogy and the congregation's vacant stares was unsettling, a paradox that shattered the fabric of the familiar. It was an intangible dread that loomed over him, whispering of wrongness in his ear, but offering no explanation. Desperate for answers, Jamal tried to raise his hand, intending to interrupt the minister, to ask him why the words he spoke felt so wrong, why the people seemed lost. But his hand remained stubbornly at his side, his body rejecting his mind's command. A sense of paralysis gripped him. It was as though an invisible force had frozen him in place, trapping him within his own body. The minister's voice droned on, the words tumbling out one after another, forming a narrative that seemed to belong to another man, not Jamal's father. The faces of the congregation were still eerily void of emotion, their eyes retaining that glazed look, as though caught in a reverie unrelated to the funeral service. A sensation of nausea began to well up within Jamal, the tumultuous turn of events overwhelming his 10-year-old sensibilities. His breath hitched, his heart hammered against his ribs, his stomach churned in a nauseating spiral. Yet trapped within his own body, he had no recourse but to endure the growing discomfort. The eerie stillness, that unsettling stares, and the minister's alienating eulogy created an atmosphere of surrealism. The church that once reverberated with his father's spirited sermons and the congregation's passionate responses had transformed into a somber theater of strange silences and vacant stares. The fear bubbled up, its cold tendrils curling around his heart, the looming sense of dread becoming more palpable. Jamal's eyes darted around, seeking a semblance of normality, a shred of familiarity, but finding none. The faces he had known all of his life seemed alien, their features frozen in a trance-like state. His sanctuary had turned into a stage of uncanny happenings, stripping away his sense of security. Though the mounting fear and disorientation, the continued numbness of his body, and the gnawing feeling of impending illness, Jamal held on. He was a lone island amidst a sea of trance-induced congregates, and a minister who spoke words devoid of his father's essence. His struggle was solitary and silent, an internal tumult that was wrestled with the eerie external calm. A profound sense of vulnerability gripped the young boy as he sat frozen, his body a prisoner to the unexplainable paralysis, his mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. He was trapped within the borders of an alien reality, an unwilling participant in a service that felt increasingly like a nightmarish echo of the tribute his father deserved. As the minister's words washed over him, and the congregation's empty eyes stared on, Jamal was left to grapple with the unsettling mystery that had turned his world upside down. A crescendo of panic gripped Jamal's heart, a cocktail of terror, confusion, and nausea threatening to consume him. Suddenly, a surge of desperation broke through his paralysis. With a strength he didn't know he possessed, Jamal broke free from the inexplicable trance, bolting up from his seat and rushing toward the minister in a whirl of desperation and defiance. "Stop!" Jamal's voice echoed through the church, the single word exploding into the silence, reverberating off the tall stone pillars and stained glass windows. His cry was a wild outcry of dissent, contradicting the narrative spun by the minister. My father isn't dead. The minister halted his sermon, his words hanging in the air as he turned to look at Jamal, his brows furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? He asked, an undercurrent of incredulity threading his voice. Jamal's heart pounded in his chest, the echo of his declaration ringing in his ears. He took a deep breath, gathering his resolve. I mean, he stuttered, my father is alive. I saw him yesterday. The minister, his surprise fading into a calm understanding, offered Jamal a comforting smile. Of course you did, he said gently. He's in a better place now. But Jamal shook his head, a fire igniting in his young eyes. No, he insisted, his voice steady and resolute. He's not dead. He's alive, and I'm going to find him. With a swift turn, Jamal darted toward the towering church doors, his heart pounding a rhythm of hope and determination. He ran past the rows of entranced congregants, their vacant stares trailing him, his small figure swallowed by the church's grandeur. But the young boy's conviction was larger than the magnitude of his surroundings, his will stronger than the trance that had bound him. The minister didn't attempt to stop him, his gaze following Jamal as he disappeared through the church doors, his figure swallowed up by the bright afternoon sun. The church, once filled with the minister's sermon, felt silent. The echo of Jamal's proclamation lingered, disrupting the narrative, challenging the reality they'd all accepted. The 10-year-old boy was now on a mission, a quest fueled by an unshakable belief in his father's existence. It was a solitary journey, one that took him from the confines of his familiar world into the unknown, his determination and unwavering faith in his father's guiding path. As Jamal burst out of the church, leaving the unsettling scene behind, he embarked on a journey of hope and discovery. His proclamation had shattered the eerie tranquility of the church, his resolve disrupting the narrative of his father's death. The young boy was now on a quest to find his father, his steps guided by an unshakable faith and a resilient spirit. In a startling twist of fate, Jamal's innocent life had been thrust into the shadows of a sinister world. His father, once a beacon of love, wisdom, and faith, had been captured by a cult, entranced by a convoluted belief system. They claimed his father as the reincarnation of their long-deceased leader, a designation that had resulted in his abduction, pulling him away from his home, his church, and his young son. The shocking revelation ripped away the veil of Jamal's understanding, replacing it with a terrifying mission to find his father and rescue him from the clutches of the cult before it was too late. The journey that unfolded was fraught with challenges, both physical and emotional. Jamal faced the unknown with the bravery of a lion cub venturing out in his safe den for the first time, each new discovery or revelation forming the stepping stones on the path toward his father. From unraveling cryptic clues to fending off threats from cult members, the young boy's determination never faltered. In his heart, Jamal carried the memory of his father's warm smile, his loving voice, the wisdom of his words. He replayed their conversations, finding comfort in the lessons his father had imparted, the stories he had shared, and the faith he had instilled. His father's teachings became the guiding light, his moral compass steering him through the shadows that threatened to engulf his mission. Finally, after a harrowing journey marked by peril and introspection, Jamal found his father, held captive within the ominous walls of the cult's fortress. With a courage fueled by love and desperation, Jamal outsmarted the cultists, his actions causing the disintegration of the group's deluded beliefs. In the end, he managed to rescue his father, their reunion a bittersweet moment amidst the ruins of the cult's shattered illusions. The narrative drew to a close with the collapse of the cult, its false doctrines unraveled, its stronghold defeated. Jamal and his father stood in the ruins, the setting sun painting a golden halo around them, a symbol of their victorious reunion. The narrative, ripe with potential for various developments, is but a skeletal structure for a more elaborate tale. The intricacies of the characters, their motivations, their transformation throughout the journey could be sculpted further to enhance the emotional depth and dramatic tension. The plot twist, while currently revolving around a cult's misguided belief, could evolve, leading to diverse story paths that throw our young hero, Jamal, into an array of challenges and revelations. Whether the story grows into a thrilling adventure, a heartwarming tale of a son's love for his father, or a coming of age narrative, its roots lie in this basic concept. Hopefully, this provides a starting point for your narrative, a springboard for your creativity to leap from, shaping and molding the tale into one that echoes your unique storytelling voice.